everyone, to the R.E.S.T podcast, where our goal is to help each and every one of you displace confusion, chaos, and dis-ease in order to heal and find significance in life. I am your host, Natalie Williams, and I am here with the author of the Reconstitution Method for Healing and Rest, Virginia Dixon.
So, Otis, I'm excited for you to share the matrix that you discovered after 13 years of reasoning through this. And I know because I spoke with you numerous times, and it was grueling. This was a tough project to put together.
13-year project.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the fruit of the Spirit. Walk us through the chart.
Okay, this is what I love. I love to sit down and walk people through the chart, because what's going to happen is you're going to get answers. Now, you may not like them, but you're going to get answers. And that's what we want. We want answers. Because if we don't have answers, the anxiety and the anguish that we get in answers is what quells those.
Yeah.
You've got to have answers.
And for those of you that are sitting in front of a computer or you have access to your cell phone, where can they go right now to track with you as you speak?
Yep. When I'm doing a conference, I tell them about this and I ask them, don't take your phones out now. I'm talking. But I will see them when I introduce this. I'll see them. They'll pull their phones out and they will take this evaluation while I'm talking.
It's irresistible.
I know. And the people in the tech people who are up above them look out and they tell me later, oh, you see, I would see the phones come on automatically. You know, they can see from behind the people. I see the people getting their phones and their iPads out.
Well, if you're driving and you can pull over, I strongly recommend you do that, because this is worth it.
So let me preface it by telling everybody what the 9 hungers are.
Okay.
If you go back to the previous blog, we set all of this up on how this came about. And those hungers are between the works of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. That's ground zero. That's what the flesh is fighting over. They're fighting over those desires so they can control the desires that are God-given to you in your heart. The fruit of the Spirit is there. That's how God wants to communicate with you. That's how He wants to relate to you, through the fruit of the Spirit, so that those hungers that He has given you, those righteous hungers, they're all righteous. He's given you righteous hungers, and He wants you to fulfill them righteously.
What are they?
So, they're intimacy, happiness, contentment. And you say, well, isn't there a redundancy there? No, there's a difference between happiness and contentment. We'll talk about it later. Then there's justice. I mean, that's all you hear nowadays. Justice, justice. I've got to have justice. And then we hyphenate it. Social justice, criminal justice, juvenile justice. We hyphenate them. But the Bible doesn't hyphenate it. It's just justice. Then there's control. And then there's respect and truth, achievement, and pleasure. And when I first introduce these, when I get to pleasure, people will push back on me and say, pleasure? God gave us the hunger for pleasure? Yeah, He did. And it's the right kind of pleasure. As a matter of fact, in Psalm 16:11, He said, at my right hand are pleasures forevermore. He gave us that desire for pleasure. Now, if I can just give this scenario, if you're listening to me, let the theater of your mind take you into this situation. So God creates you, and He gives you these 9 hungers, and He says, I will fulfill every one of them for you. You come to me, I will fulfill them. I will make you happy. I will give you contentment. Intimacy with me, He desires that more than we desire that from Him. Yeah, I like what Max Lucado says, where He would rather go to hell with us than to heaven without us. He loves us. He wants that connection and that intimacy. And then there's justice and that control and that respect and all of this. God says, I can take care of all that. There's such a huge narrative out there now trying to solve the issue of justice. I mean, you see it in sports. You see people putting their occupations on the line just so justice can be done. Justice is huge. God says, I can give you justice. You come to me. And with all of these, the devil comes along and he says, I can give you the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And now.
And you know he can. Mm-hmm. He can. He can give you the same thing. He can satisfy that hunger. That's ground zero. Satisfying that hunger is ground zero. That's where the battle takes place. The spirit wars against the flesh, and the flesh wars against the spirit to satisfy these hungers.
That's the conflict.
That's the conflict.
And I want to say that often we refer to these hungers in the context of sessions and our curriculum as being negotiated by the mind, the heart, the will, the conscience, the feelings in the center cavity of your chest, in your very soul. These hungers are negotiated in your soul. And if you notice, you put your hand over your heart where the soul dwells, right? Think about it. That's between the fruit of the Spirit, which is above your head, let's say. Mm-hmm. The fruit, things grow. They grow what? They grow up, right? They bear fruit, and the beauty of them are up. And the works of the flesh is down. It's just a good way to see there's a tension between things that draw us up and things that pull us down. And they're negotiated by these hungers in our soul.
Yes. And so that's why the chart, if you had this chart that we have in front of us, you would see, we say you ascend into the fruit of the Spirit, you descend into the works of the flesh. I wish everybody out there had this chart.
Well, it is available on our Day of Rest curriculum as well as our 40 Days of Rest. We actually have the chart available for people to see if they register for either of those events online.
That's cool.
And we break it down for them. Mm-hmm. But they can take the soul hunger test online.
So that's what we were getting to.
Okay.
So I thought you needed to know, the audience needs to know these hungers, because one of them will be dominant. Mm. Right now in your life, you're feeding one of these. It's like when your body hungers for potassium, you will feed on what gives you potassium. Wherever your battle is right now, mm-hmm. you'll find the hunger that you're trying.
And the reason it's important is so you can identify quickly, looking at this chart, what's going to pull you down or what's going to
lift you up.
Lift you up.
Yeah, you can't fight a nameless enemy, a faceless enemy. You'll never win it.
So if you understand your hunger, you know the resources that are going to
you know what choice you need to make.
That's right.
If you understand your hunger, and I'll tell you, I developed this evaluation, and I took this evaluation, and when I answered it honestly, answered the questions honestly, mine's contentment. My hunger is contentment. So I know what I have to watch out for.
Yeah.
To get contentment, we'll have a tendency to go to idolatry. We don't go to God. We make our own God, because your God is who you worship.
I'm right next to you.
Ah, see there?
Mine's justice.
That's my wife's too. Is that yours too?
No, mine's intimacy.
Oh, okay.
Intimacy.
Oh, cool. Connection. Mm-hmm. Like to be connected.
Yes.
Yep.
But peace, you're a peacemaker, Otis.
Yes,
and I can see why you were given this assignment, because this brings about peace.
You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. I don't like conflict. I don't like chaos.
When we talk about soul hungers, I don't want everyone to get confused with attachment. When we talk about soul hunger, we're talking about peace is the fruit of reconciling and the fruit of managing, regulating, understanding that hunger is peace by how you handle the things that compel you, right? Mm-hmm. But the fruit of the flesh is idolatry and sorcery. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Talk about that for a minute.
I have to watch out that I only worship God. I can't make my contentment assuage that hunger by taking something and making it more important than God.
You mean you don't binge on Yellowstone? Or 1883?
This isn't a confessional. This is a blog. Yeah. So idolatry is just finding what makes you content, and it becomes more important than God. And it might be sports. And there's nothing wrong with sports until it is more important than God.
The source of your contentment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's sorcery.
Tell us about sorcery.
That word in the original is pharmakia. What does that sound like?
Pharmacy.
Pharmacy. That's drugs. That's drugs. Usually when we want contentment, if we can't find it in the chaos and everything, a pill will help you chill.
Yeah.
And you can become content with drugs, which will lead you into illicit drugs and which will take you down a road you don't want to go down. But people do that. One of my mentors, Henry Brandt, we were driving in the car. I was taking him somewhere. I can't even remember where we were going, but I always learned from him. He was the ultimate Christian psychologist. And he asked me one day, he said, Otis, you know why people take drugs? And I thought, okay, I'm going to get something really, really deep here from my mentor. So I'm going to concentrate and listen. I said, no, Doc, why do they? He said, because they work. That's your answer? Because they work?
Because they work. Okay.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He said they work temporarily, but then your body becomes adjust to them, so you've got to make them stronger.
Yep.
And then your body adjusts, so you got to make them stronger. And so there'll come a time they can't make one strong enough to be safe for you to take, because your body now has craved that, and you become content, and you have relied on that drug, and even though it was a drug prescribed by a doctor, you've relied on it. And we see that in the opioid crisis.
Oh, yeah.
So how does sorcery come into this?
It's drugs, pharmakia. Your contentment is...
So you're opening the doors to your soul to things that
will control you.
That will control you.
That is not of God.
And sadly, I've had to address this on a number of different podcasts. It's a tough subject.
In the addiction series, yes.
In the addiction series. Thank you. What episodes are those, Natalie?
Oh, goodness gracious. I'd have to go back and look.
But in the addiction series.
It's in the addiction series,
we address those.
It's easy to find.
And that's really, really important, because this is the challenge of, well, among many, but this is a very serious situation we're facing. And it's impossible to eradicate the drug problem if we're not willing to understand the connection with contentment, the fruit of peace that's possible to us, by how we medicate, and we find it through idolatry. It can be shopping, it can be video games, it can be online games, it can be sports,
That's right? Absolutely right.
It can be anything, and it opens the door to medicate.
That is so true. It's very dangerous. So I let everybody know that mine is contentment, yours is justice, yours is connection and intimacy. So you that are listening, what's yours? What is that dominant hunger that you're always going to battle? That's where the devil's going to come first, because he knows it's your dominant hunger, and he's going to try to move you away from God through that hunger, that desire that God gave you. It's going to be a coup d'etat. He's going to try to overtake it.
Yeah. And I want to just interject for those of you that don't believe in the devil. Let me just put it in other words. You know there's light. You know there's dark. You know there's good. You know there's bad. You know there's things that give you life. You know there's things that diminish your life. You know there's things that are just, and you know the things that are unjust. Things that are lawful, things that are unlawful. So gauge it by that. One gives life, the other diminishes life. I happen to believe, sadly, from personal encounters, that demons are real, so are angels, that Satan is very real, and so is God. But those are things we all have to negotiate. However you want to interpret that polarity, this reality that we have to face in time, just understand that you do have this beautiful hunger, intimacy, happiness, contentment, justice, control, respect, truth, achievement, pleasure, whatever it is. It's going to find its expression in the impulses that drive you, or the things that compel you. One's driven by your flesh. The other is by the deepest convictions that are often woven into a narrative of pain. We find our purpose in our pain. Sometimes we find
many times. That's
many
so
times.
True. So I want everybody to know theirs. In the book, there's a evaluation. It's 27 questions. When I talked to my webmaster, he said, no social media is going to answer 27 questions. Nobody on social media is going to do that. So you got to get them down. I said, so we need to get them to 9. He said, no, you need to get them to 10. So if you go to hungertest.com and scroll all the way to the bottom where it says start the test, then it will give you those 10 questions.
We do also have the assessment on the document section of our website
That's
that they
right.
can take if they need to.
Oh, that's right. So say, Natalie, that's wonderful. So hungertest.com, they can get some feedback. In addition to that, you can go to our website, right, Natalie?
Yeah, you can go to our website. You'll have to sign up for the website, but then you can go to the document section of your member profile and you'll see the assessment in there as well.
Good. So how do they sign up? They go to virginiadixon.com.
And it's on the left-hand side. It says log in, and it looks like a little emblem with a little dude in it. And you just click that, sign up, and then you'll see it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So go to virginiadixon.com and sign up so we can track how many of you have done this and see if we can get some data and how we can best meet the needs. For example, we'll see the results. So if we have, which I know, 80 or 90% is going to be a hunger for intimacy. We know that a disproportionate, significant,
Probably with what you deal with here, I'm sure it will be.
What is the deepest hunger nationally?
Intimacy.
Yeah.
It generally, the webmaster says, it generally comes in at about 36% of everybody who takes out of the 9 is intimacy. 36%.
Significant.
Yeah, but just to prove the point, with COVID and with the lockdowns and with everything that was happening with COVID, the webmaster gave me the results during that time, and it moved up to 70-something%.
Oh, because everyone's separated.
They wanted to connect.
Yeah.
So you see how good it works?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it will be fluid. You might take it once a month. You might take that evaluation once a month, because this month you might be dealing with something totally different than your dominant hunger.
This is wonderful. We gave people a place to go. And you and I spoke briefly about hosting a live YouTube podcast where we're going to have this up on a big smart board. Hopefully Otis can join us, and if not, he'll join us electronically. But we're really going to break this down for you so you can understand how we use it at the office and how absolutely instrumental it is to understand what compels you as opposed to what drives you.
Yeah, we're going to try to have it live so that you can actually talk to us while we are going through our conversation, ask questions. So I have a lot of work ahead of me to get all of that set up.
That'd be awesome. But in the book, the 27 question evaluations, and if you're that interested, it will really drill down on you.
Do we have the book available, of course?
Yes, on our website. Under resources, yes.
Under resources, go to virginiadixon.com, resources, and order the book. Okay, we'll discuss this and each hunger in greater detail next segment, so everyone knows what to do with the information. Thank you.
Thanks,
Natalie.
All right, everyone. If you would like more information about Dr. Ledbetter, please go to J.O. Ledbetter, that's LEDBETTER.com, and keep an eye out for his newest book, Set Free, Released from the Damage of Trauma. If you have been listening to our podcast regularly and are now wondering what's next or what else can I do to start applying these principles, our on-demand Day of Rest is available to support you in your pilgrimage. Use the promo code PODCAST, all lowercase, to receive a 10% discount for our on-demand Day of Rest. For updates about rest and this podcast, please visit our Instagram or Facebook, The Place of Rest. If you'd like more information about Virginia or to support and join the cause of rest, please go to virginiadixon.com/collaborate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to Rest with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.